irresponsible would be leaving Travis Hunter off of any finalist list right now. He's not a finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award for the trophy. And this goes to the nation's top defensive back. Of course, his head coach, Deion Sanders, is pissed off for greatness about this. And, well, Hunter's going to receive a trophy from 1988.
Before I open up for questions, I'm going to address something that just transpired and they brought to my attention today, that Travis is a finalist for the Walter Camp Player of the Year, Maxwell Player of the Year, Bednarik Defense Player of the Year, Blitnikoff Best Receiver, regardless of position, and was snubbed by the Thorpe. How? How is Travis Hunter snubbed by the Jim Thorpe Award? You can have my award, you can have it back. Matter of fact, I'm going to give him mine. I ain't using it, it's just sitting up there collecting dust. So Travis could have my Thorpe Award, because if this ain't the most idiotic thing in college football, that he's not a finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award, and he is, I would say arguably, but I don't think it's really an argument about this young man being the best defensive back in college football. I ain't saying nothing about the receiver part of it. I'm just talking about defensive back. He rarely gets thrown at. He's won a game for tackling for us, and he's always on point. So if you bring up the statistics, I don't know how in the world is Travis Hunter not a finalist for the Jim Thorpe Award. They just pretty much messed up all the integrity of the award, and he could have mine. Whoever's voting down there, who's ever bringing it home, thank you, because I don't even want mine now. God bless you.
God bless you for that.
Yeah, God bless you too, Prime.
This reminds me of like when Mark Jackson left Joker off of his MVP ballot altogether.
Yeah, just forgot.
I don't know how this happens. I mean,
Just
the guy's
totally-
going to be a Heisman finalist.
Yeah, just blanked out on it.
I don't know. Again, how do you forget the best player in college football? Like, just all-around player. And this is his best position, by the way. He has 3 interceptions, 9 pass breakups, and a forced fumble. He's not thrown at. I mean, for good reason, because of how talented he is.
I don't understand it. And it's also, it lends itself to more conspiracy theories or favoritism, because the 3 finalists are Malachi Starks from Georgia, headed to the college football playoff, Jahdae Barron from Texas, headed to the college football playoff, and Caleb Downs from Ohio State, headed to the college football playoff. So you got 3 guys that all of America is very interested in with their teams right now that will be competing for a national championship very soon. And then left off the list is the one guy that if you said to any sports fan the name, they would know him as a great defensive back and also a great wide receiver. But I think first and foremost, a great defensive back is what you're getting with him. So I don't get it, Hutton. I don't know how that happens. I don't know if it's oversight, favoritism, whatever it is. And that's not taking anything away from Caleb Downs, Malachi Starks, and Barron. They're all really good players, but you got 2 safeties on that list, 1 cornerback. If you're going to have 2 safeties and 1 cornerback, that 1 cornerback should be Travis Hunter. That's ridiculous.
No doubt.
Good for Deion Sanders for saying, I'm just going to give him my trophy. This is how angry it makes me that he's not on the list of finalists.
Well, and he cares. You know,
he cares, and it helps him with future recruits to see how much he cares.
But I mean, if he didn't want to bring this up, I mean, all he has to do is point out that he's a finalist for Most Outstanding Player, the Maxwell Award, Blitnikoff. I mean, he went through them.
Yeah,
it's everything but the Jim Thorpe Award.
He could have easily, pointed out a little bit of disappointment, but said, well, at least he's nominated for all these. But he made the snub with the Jim Thorpe Award the focal point of his entire argument. I don't blame him. I think it's ridiculous, too.
You know what surprises me about primetime? And I fully admit this. And I was expecting this to happen, and it didn't. I thought it was going to be a huge push for Shedeur winning awards by his dad.
Yeah.
And we haven't really seen that. They've handled things the right way after a preseason of blaming the media and kicking people out of the press room. Like I'm surprised.
It's been a complete reversal. It's been a complete 180 from the start of the year. Yeah. And even from his first season, I give him full marks for improving, and he hasn't done it by completely changing who he is or how he goes about his business, but he has tweaked some things, and he's adjusted based on some early season failure, and I think the program seems like it's in a much more solid spot now in a conference that there is zero stability. I feel like with the programs, I mean, who are you buying in the Big 12 every year to be a consistent contender in that conference? It was the complete flip-flop of where the predictions were in the preseason of the teams that are now competing for the championship.
Well, I think
the bottom half is better than the top half with preseason predictions. No one knew anything about the Big 12. So I keep going back to if he can get a 5-star quarterback coming in like Julian Lewis that he has, and you have Coach Prime there, I mean, why not Colorado being a year-in, year-out possibility? Hell, even favorite to win the Big 12.
Yeah, I mean, there could be 9 favorites. I think that benefits the Big 12, though.
Yeah.
That you don't know. I mean, they're the second most competitive conference.
It makes for a fun league and fun games. But, I mean, who's the preeminent program left?
Well, it's up for grabs.
In the Big 12, right?
It's up for grabs
now
after
that there are two big dogs left.
Yeah.
I mean,
it should be.
It sounds crazy given Colorado's history, but I look at Colorado versus every other program in that conference, and I think, why not Colorado? To be the power of that conference.
And that's more credit to what they've done in 2 years to be where they are after starting the Pac-12. But, I mean, it should be Oklahoma State. We haven't mentioned them in weeks, months. Who else? TCU?
I mean, I'll give you some contenders right now. You know, BYU's won a national title in their history, maybe. Baylor, TCU.
I mean, it's been Kansas,
West
and Kansas
Virginia.
State too. Yeah.
Oklahoma State. I mean, that's it. Outside of that, you've got a bunch of programs that either historically have not been very good at football at all and haven't won a lot, or that have some potential. I'd put Arizona as a team that, in a program that maybe has some potential, but they haven't done anything throughout their history. Arizona State, same way.
I mean, credit to the conference, though. They're doing what the ACC wishes they could do. You know, get Florida State, who's been just abysmal, and no one has stepped up to take over that spot that's, you know, been trailing or mid-tier in the ACC. It's been average. What we expect from the ACC, you know, if we're just looking ahead at Miami and SMU and Clemson, you know, like even Clemson hasn't been Clemson.
BYU is picked dead last in the conference. They're currently tied for first at 6-2. Utah and Oklahoma State were picked, I think, first and third or first and second. Utah's 1-7. Oklahoma State's 0-8. And Oklahoma State's trying to get their first win their only win in conference this season against Colorado on Saturday.
Nuts, man. It's crazy.
So no one knows what the hell is going on in the Big 12. So I'll throw it back out there again. Why not Coach Prime in Colorado to become the Oklahoma or Texas of that conference? And I'm not saying they're going to become Oklahoma and Texas. I'm saying in the Big 12, where if you win that conference, you should be one of the highest ranked 5 conference champions.
The expectation is you're on top. You're in the top third.
In most years, you should get a bye to be in the top 4. Not this year.
We're
going to get into the playoff rankings, but boy, there are some chaos scenarios out there that no one would have ever expected that I noticed last night.
Well, let's jump into it.
Let's do it.
The playoff rankings, and we'll look at what was announced. Chad, you were eager to see where Tennessee would fall.
Mm-hmm.
We mentioned as well.
Rise, I guess.
Well, that's
fall in the rankings, but yeah.
Yeah, we were both eager to see where Indiana would fall. Should mention that. And Indiana's prime at an 11-1 season. If they take care of business, they're in the playoff.
Yep.
Same thing for Georgia, Tennessee. SMU has been climbing over the last few weeks, and Notre Dame is right there. You know, they'd be a top seed, top 4 if they could ever actually get the bye, but they can't. That's as high as they can go. The committee is like them.
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of issues with this, and let's leave these rankings up there because we're going to go through a couple different layers of all of this. If I had to point out one thing, and we can reference this every time. I want to see what happens this weekend and get to the end of the regular season first. But if chalk takes place this weekend, which it rarely does, I would like to revisit Georgia, Tennessee, and then Miami, Notre Dame, and Penn State being ranked ahead of those two teams. If Georgia and Tennessee finish 10-2 with their schedule in their conference versus Notre Dame. Now, again, Notre Dame could go and blow out USC, and I'm not having this discussion at all. Penn State, I could still have that discussion. Miami, I'm definitely having that discussion, even with a win this week, as to who's actually been more impressive and shown more balance, offense and defense, right? You can win a lot of games having one side of the ball, but if we're talking about who are the best teams, you got to have a great defense too, and Miami's defense is terrible. So, again, we'll wait to the end of this week to really have those debates. Here's the one that's nuts. Tulane is at 17. They're one spot behind the highest-ranked Big 12 team, okay? If the Big 12 champion has 3 losses or even a 4th loss, for the way this thing is breaking out, but 3 losses, is Tulane going to pass possibly by winning the American Conference? And we talked about the 5 highest ranked. It's not just the Power 4 plus 1. It's the 5 ranked conference champions. There's a scenario where the Big 12 gets shut out of the college football playoff.
Let's also point out, that's interesting. I didn't notice that.
Because you could have Boise State get the bye as in the top 4 conference champions, and the 5th highest ranked conference champion could be the champion of the American in Tulane if they continue to win. And if that's the case, the Big 12 may not have a team in the college football playoff.
2 things to point out for me. If South Carolina wins that shootout against LSU, they're sitting in the college football playoff right now. That's number 1.
Yep.
Number 2, where does Texas A&M move if they beat Texas this week?
Because they dropped big time.
Yes.
I thought that was a pretty precipitous drop for them down to 20.
And what's Missouri doing there, by the way?
I don't get it. I didn't get it last week. I mean, they did well this week, I guess, in winning at Mississippi State. But
if A&M wins, they're right on the outside of the playoff, going to the SEC championship game with a chance to get in with a win. And I don't think Georgia would fall out.
Yeah, I don't.
Again, that's a fascinating scenario. And if Georgia ends up winning, we're going to see some other losses. How much does a loss hurt the teams ahead of Ole Miss and Alabama?
I mean, I think that the best chance for the SEC to get the most teams in, if you're Greg Sankey and you have rooting interest at all, you're rooting for A&M to win at home over Texas, get to the SEC championship game, and then have the committee treat that like an exhibition bowl game where the loser has no consequences, which I don't think would happen. But even if they did, then for Texas A&M to win, and Georgia's still probably going to get in with only 2 losses going into that, and then Tennessee beats Vandy, and then you've got a slam dunk, I think, 4 that are in, with Texas with 2 losses, A&M as the SEC champ, Georgia as a 3-loss SEC runner-up that lost in the championship game, and Tennessee at 10-2. To me, that's the slam dunk scenario for 4. Any other scenario, and you're flirting with only 3.
And then who knows what happens with Bama and Ole Miss are right there primed to move.
But also, as I said yesterday, it always works out for ESPN, always works out for the network. And I think it's going to work out for ESPN's biggest partner, the SEC. When all is said and done, it's going to work out the way they want it to.
Here's how the bracket would look based on the committee's rankings this week in Week 14. I love some of these matchups.
I hate the conference, the rematch especially.
Well, I guess I like the matchups after round 1.
Yeah.
What it sets up for in the quarters. It's nearly impossible, though, to not have some of these rematches or, maybe a conference matchup, but we haven't seen it, based on the fact that the Big Ten and the SEC get 4 in each. You see what I'm saying? It's tough to pull that off.
So there's a way to do this. I mean, the NCAA tournament does it, that it prevents itself. Even in the second round, you can't have a rematch.
You make sure.
You in the bracket's bigger, so they have some more flexibility, but they make sure where you can't have a rematch until the Sweet 16. You're not going to get one in the first round or a conference versus conference foe or the second round. You could do that. Now, it would cost someone a seed possibly, right? If it was 9 versus 8, well, now we got to bump you and swap to go 10 versus 7, 9 versus 8 to avoid, let's say, Tennessee in this instance, they would be the one that does not get the benefit of the doubt because now they go to 10, SMU moves up to 9, so you avoid a rematch. Now Tennessee goes to Notre Dame, which I would take that in a heartbeat, by the way, as a Tennessee fan, over going back to Georgia to play them. But, you see my point. Someone's going to have to sacrifice a seed line to do that to avoid a rematch. But I'm all for it because I do not want to see, if this were the bracket, I don't want to see Tennessee at Georgia again a month later in the first round.
Don't you think they'll try to avoid that? I think they will.
I think that everything's going to work out how they want it to work out in the end.
You would want to not have the rematch.
They're going to paint a convoluted picture of why they came to that conclusion, no matter what. But it's going to get to the conclusion they want.
And they have to address, when they move to 16, the current setup. I know why they're doing this, but the buys, when you have the winner of Indiana Penn State going to take on Miami, and you have Tennessee and Georgia moving on to take on Oregon, there's a huge difference there based on one number.
That's a tough road.
I mean, yeah. I mean, you earn what you earn, but the teams getting the bye, there's a huge difference.
Well, it's what line you get on. I mean, if you're the one that's got Boise State as the 4 seed in the second round, I mean, that is. And they get past the first round game.
They don't reseed.
All due respect to Boise State, that's a cakewalk for you into the semis.
Well,
if that's the team you get that has the bye.
Let's put the bracket up briefly here, because the number 1 seed is going based on proximity. They will be playing, so Oregon would be out west, the closest thing to them.
Ohio State does not have a challenge until the semis.
Yeah, right.
That's what jumps out to me.
Yeah,
and they're not going to be challenged.
Yep.
Everyone else, the first round is a killer, for that respective team, and then the second round is going to be very difficult.
I don't know about Miami though, but yes,
I like Indiana or Penn State to get to the semis in that one.
And again, it sets up well for the Big Ten on this.
And who knows about Texas? We're going to find out so much about Texas Friday night.
Yeah.
Because that is by far their toughest test of the year. Outside of Georgia, that they did not pass. They got doubled up at home by Georgia. But outside of that, this is going to be their biggest test by a mile. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Black Friday is coming up. The OutKick Black Friday sale, it's already underway currently at OutKick.com. You go to shop.OutKick.com and take advantage of this. It's that magical and only time of the year when our prices, they fall faster than autumn leaves. It's Chad's favorite season.
Big autumn guy. We're very autumn colors right now.
Well done.
Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's perfect. Festive.
Mowing season, the holy grail of holiday gifts available at the OutKick shop. Shop.OutKick.com to take advantage of the Black Friday sale at OutKick.